Hey guys, tonight we're cracking open the lunchboxes of history. And I hope you've eaten, because what's inside is about to ruin your appetite and possibly your faith in humanity. Yes, tonight we're diving fork first into the disgusting truth about 1900 school lunches. The only thing more mysterious than what's in that weird meatloaf is how anyone survived eating it. Now, before we marinate in the mysteries of century-old jell-o and bread so hard it could double as a building material, take a second to like the video and subscribe, but only if you actually enjoy this culinary chaos. Drop a comment about your own school lunch horror story, or just tell me what time it is for you. There's a good chance you're listening to this while eating a midnight snack, which is deeply ironic given tonight's topic. So, dim the lights, turn on a fan for that comforting white noise, and get comfortable, ideally not with any food within arm's reach. If you're wearing pajamas, congratulations, you're already cleaner than 90% of the kitchens from 1905. Now, let's set the mood with some questions to nibble on. Ever wonder why cafeteria food looks the same in every movie? Grey, lumpy, and served by someone with the emotional range of a potato. Did 1900 kids really eat boiled beef tongue? Or is that just a cruel rumor made up by grandpas? How much of school lunch was actually edible? And how much was just an elaborate dare? Would you have survived on a diet of mystery stews, spam sandwiches, and whatever victory salad was supposed to be? And honestly, when did jell-o become a food group? And why was everything either floating in it or suspiciously congealed beside it? If a tomato aspic lands on your tray and nobody eats it, did it ever really exist? Congratulations! You've just woken up in a drafty, echoing schoolhouse at 1907. Your desk is a splinter factory, your teacher is armed with a ruler, and lunch is, let's just say, an experience you'll never forget. Welcome to the cafeteria of your nightmares. It's noon at 1907, and your stomach is growling with equal parts hunger and dread. You line up in a creaky hallway, the air thick with the aroma of boiled cabbage, wet wool, and childhood anxiety. Ahead, the double doors swing open, a portal to the most dangerous part of your school day. The lunchroom. You shuffle forward, feet sticking to a floor coated in a layer of mystery grime. Every step squeaks just a little too loudly. The girl in front of you is clutching a battered tin pail, and behind you, some kid named Billy is plotting to swap his apple for literally anything else. Overhead, the bare bulbs flicker with the energy of 1,000 unfulfilled health codes, casting the entire room in a yellowish, vaguely menacing glow. There's no such thing as open seating. Instead, survival means making it to the bench before the weird kid who eats paste. Or, even worse, next to the boy who chews with his mouth open and narrates every bite. As you enter, the first thing you notice is the temperature. Somehow both too hot and too cold. The windows are fogged up, their panes glistening with the collective exhalations of 50 children who haven't learned what a tissue is. The air is heavy, steamy, and laced with the sweet, sharp tang of institutional bleach, except in the corners, where it smells suspiciously like someone spilled a secret. Above all, there's the relentless undertone of boiling something. Is it cabbage? Is it socks? Has it always been this way? The noise level is a symphony of chaos. Forks clatter on dented trays. Chairs scrape with the screech of tortured barn owls. There's shouting, giggling, the occasional shriek of injustice as someone discovers their bread has a suspicious spot of green. The lunch monitor stalks the aisles like a humorless warden, armed with a towel and a steely glare. You get the sense she's seen things, horrible things, and you make a mental note not to spill your milk. Trays are handed out one by one. Each tray is an archaeological dig of the food pyramid. Circa, we're not really sure, but it has calories. A lumpy scoop of mashed potatoes, greyish. defying all expectations. A slab of meat that may have started the week as something else. And, of course, the omnipresent vegetable medley. Boiled, colorless, and leaking into every other compartment. There is always a scoop of beans or peas, slightly congealed, shivering gently in anticipation of being left behind. At the end, a half pint of milk, room temperature and sweating like it's got something to hide. There's no real line between friend and foe in this cafeteria. Today's ally might turn into tomorrow's adversary if the apple slices run out. Swapping is the local currency. Half your dessert for 2 crackers, or a square of fudge, if you're lucky enough to get one, for someone else's bread. The unwritten rules are enforced with the speed and ruthlessness of a Wall Street trading floor. Drop your sandwich, and someone's already staked a claim. Turn your back on your stewed prunes, and they'll vanish faster than you can say fruit cup. Now comes the main event. Eating. You glance at your plate, trying to identify at least one ingredient with confidence. It's a game. Is that meat, or is it an elaborate dare? Should the jell-o jiggle that much? You try not to make eye contact with the kid who eats everything with his fingers, and you learn, very quickly, not to ask too many questions about what's floating in your soup. The sound of chewing is punctuated by sighs, whispers, and the occasional, hopeful exclamation, "Hey, trade you my carrot for your cookie?" Lunchroom etiquette is a battlefield. Finish your meal, and you're rewarded with a dismissive nod from the lunch monitor. Leave anything behind, and she'll stand over you until you either finish it or devise an escape plan. No one actually wants seconds, but sometimes you're just grateful your food isn't moving on its own. If you need water, brace yourself for the gauntlet that is the communal fountain. A thin, metallic trickle of water, flavored with the ghosts of 100 mouths before yours. By the end of the lunch period, you're both exhausted and slightly victorious. You've survived another meal, outmaneuvered the worst trades, and maybe, just maybe, snuck an extra biscuit from a friend. You leave the cafeteria with your dignity mostly intact, a vague sense of pride, and a lingering smell of boiled vegetable trailing behind you like a badge of honor. Welcome to the Lunchroom, 1907. You made it. For now. On Mondays, the menu promises beef, but nobody's brave enough to ask which part. Your plate arrives with a wobbling slab of something brownish, its flavor somewhere between shoe leather and existential crisis. Whatever animal it came from, you hope it lived a full life. As you stare down at your lunch tray, the beef seems to stare right back, defying you to make the first move. It jiggles in a way that meat really shouldn't, glistening under the harsh cafeteria lights, and emits a faint aroma that somehow manages to be both beefy and slightly medicinal. The lunch lady slaps it onto your plate with the kind of gusto only someone completely immune to cafeteria food can muster. You ask her what it is, and she just smiles the haunted smile of someone who's seen things you know better than to push for more information. Next to your slab of mystery, there's a side of mashed potatoes, at least. That's what the menu calls them. They're more like a pale, grainy paste, designed mostly to soak up the odd, thin gravy pooling around the meat. The potatoes themselves taste like the inside of a damp envelope, but they do a good job of disguising any flavor the meat tries to put forth. You look around. Every kid at your table is attempting the same strategy. Make a little mountain of potatoes, hide the beef underneath, and hope nobody notices you only took one bite. The bravest among you attempts to cut the meat. The cafeteria knives are about as sharp as a buttered noodle, and it takes several saw-like motions just to break the surface. A faint squeak escapes as the blade scrapes against something unyielding, bone, cartilage, or possibly a hidden artifact from the Spanish-American War. It's anybody's guess. You consider picking it up with your hands, but the gelatinous gravy acts as an effective, if slightly repulsive, deterrent. And then there's the texture. One bite tells you everything you need to know, and more than you ever wanted to. It's fibrous, yet somehow also spongy, with a grain pattern that would make a lumberjack weep. You chew and chew and chew some more, your jaw growing tired as the beef stubbornly refuses to break down. This is meat as endurance test, not nourishment. Your friends exchange glances, silently weighing their options. Some try the old napkin trick, concealing unchewed chunks and hoping the ever-watchful lunch monitor is distracted by a ketchup spill. Others get creative, swapping their mystery meat for a friend's untouched slice of bread or a coveted cookie. The luckiest kid is the one with a cold, excused by a sympathetic teacher, sipping weak tea from home and looking positively smug. Around you, the cafeteria buzzes with speculation. "My dad says it's tongue," someone whispers. "No, it's liver," counters another. "Last week it was horse," adds a third, clearly aiming for dramatic effect. The truth, you suspect, is that even the cooks don't know. This is a world before nutritional labels, before transparency, before anyone thought to ask, should we really be eating this? And yet, despite it all, there's a sense of camaraderie. You're all in it together. A table of tiny gladiators facing down the weekly protein challenge. The meat may be mysterious, but the rituals are not. Poke, prod, taste, regret, hide, and then spend the afternoon inventing wild stories about what you ate. One kid swears the gravy once moved on its own. Another claims the meat had a tiny stamp on it, proof that it once belonged to a circus. By the time the bell rings, most trays hold the remains of Monday's beef, carefully rearranged to look smaller than they actually are. You scrape your plate into the big slop bucket at the end of the line, watching as all the day's culinary confusion is mixed together in a primordial stew. The lunch lady gives you a nod. Was that pride? Or just relief that you made it through? You leave the cafeteria with a new respect for your digestive system, a lingering taste of mystery, and the certain knowledge that no matter what life throws at you, it'll never be as weird as what you just put in your mouth. Welcome to Mystery Meat Monday. Identification not required, courage absolutely essential. School lunch in the early 1900s came with a mandatory side of vegetables, all cooked to a greyish oblivion. Today's choices include carrots, potatoes, and, if you're unlucky, turnips that seem to fight back. Everything is seasoned with equal parts salt and resignation. You slide your tray along the counter and brace yourself as the lunch lady, wielding a slotted spoon with the precision of a prison guard, dollops out the vegetable medley. The carrots arrive first. Soft, orange coins that were once full of life and are now the culinary equivalent of a heartfelt sigh. You poke them gently with your fork. They yield with no resistance, collapsing into mush with barely a nudge, as if even they have given up. Next up, potatoes. Not the fluffy, buttery kind you might imagine. These are boiled, unpeeled, and served in generous lumps, their edges dissolving into the thin, mysterious broth pooling at the bottom of your tray. The flavor profile is best described as wet, with subtle notes of earth and something that might once have been hope. They stick to the roof of your mouth in a way that defies the laws of physics and makes you question every life choice that led to this moment. And then there are the turnips. Oh, the turnips. They lurk among the vegetables like unwelcome guests at a family reunion. Chalky white with purple bruises, they sit defiantly beside the carrots and potatoes, daring you to take a bite. The first mouthful is always the hardest. Your teeth sink in, and for a split second, you think it might not be so bad, until the aftertaste hits, a blend of bitterness and starchy rebellion. Some kids claim turnips are good for you. Others believe they're a government plot to weed out the weak. There's no escaping the vegetables. The lunch monitor makes sure every child gets a full serving. You try to trade your carrots for more potatoes, but nobody's biting. Even the bravest lunchroom negotiators know the rules. You can barter cookies, swap apples, even trade bread crusts, but you're on your own when it comes to the boiled vegetables. That's the hill everyone must die on. You scan the room, searching for strategies. The experienced veterans have a system. Some hide their veggies under the mashed potatoes, hoping the gravy will mask the taste. Others smuggle offending turnips into a folded napkin, tucking them away for a quick dump at the end of lunch. The most desperate among you attempt the old chew and swallow quickly method, washing everything down with lukewarm milk and a prayer. No one chews twice. The smell in the cafeteria is a constant reminder of your fate. The vegetables give off a heavy, humid aroma that clings to your hair and clothes long after lunch has ended. It's the scent of survival, of hundreds of children collectively steeling themselves for one more forkful of disappointment. Your teacher tells you to be grateful. Eat your vegetables, she says. There are children in Europe who'd be glad to have this. You silently wish those children could have your turnips, but beneath the suffering, there's a strange sense of unity. You and your classmates are bonded by a shared struggle, a vegetable-induced rite of passage. Even the popular kids can't escape the boiled beetroot. The lunchroom rebels try to resist, but eventually even they succumb to the relentless campaign of soft, unidentifiable produce. By the end of the meal, you've all grown a little older, a little wiser, and definitely a little more suspicious of anything green. You finish as much as you can, slide your tray down to the big metal slop bin, and listen to the splat as your uneaten vegetables join the rest in the day's final, tragic vegetable parade. As you shuffle out, you catch a glimpse of tomorrow's menu, already posted on the wall. Steamed cabbage. You shudder. The bell rings, signaling a merciful end to the ordeal. You survived another round. Your parents will wonder why your clothes always smell faintly of boiled root, and you'll have no answer except lunch was rough. You walk away knowing that somehow you'll face the next parade and the next. Because in 1907, no one escapes the Great Boiled Vegetable Parade. You just hope you come out the other side with your taste buds and your dignity intact. The bread is a dense, formidable slice that doubles as a blunt instrument. If you manage to chew through it, you're rewarded with a smear of butter, or at least something that once aspired to be butter. It's not exactly a carb lover's paradise. You pick up your chunk of bread, weighing it in your hand like a medieval bricklayer evaluating his next project. This is not the pillowy, crusty on the outside, soft on the inside bread of a French bakery commercial. This is a survival ration masquerading as a meal. The crust is thick enough to resist forks, knives, and the casual ambitions of a child's teeth. The middle is chewy and alarmingly grey, packed with so many unmilled grains and seeds that every bite feels like a workout for your jaw and a gamble for your dental fillings. Beneath the top layer, the bread yields only to persistence. You contemplate the butter, which sits atop your slice in a thin, uncertain layer. In truth, it might be butter, margarine, or something unclassifiable, a churned dairy product, lightly salted, possibly months old, spread so thinly that it's more of a suggestion than a topping. It leaves an oily mark on your fingers and an existential question in your soul. Was it ever really butter, or is it just hope with a yellow tint? As you chew, you have plenty of time to reflect. The bread is so hearty it absorbs every drop of saliva, leaving your mouth as dry as a history textbook. You try to wash it down with the room temperature milk provided, but even that only adds a faint dairy aftertaste to the ongoing struggle. Someone at your table tries dunking their bread in their soup, hoping to soften it up. But the bread wins the battle, disintegrating into a pasty lump at the bottom of the bowl. Conversation at your table revolves around the bread's legendary properties. Someone claims it once broke a window in the science lab. Another says it's been passed down from older siblings. And if you survive it, you're ready for anything life throws at you. Bread Day isn't about indulgence. It's about survival and communal suffering. You trade stories and bite your way through, bonding with your classmates over every splintery mouthful. Occasionally you get lucky and find a raisin or a walnut embedded in your slice, a tiny treasure in a landscape of dry, flowery monotony. These rare treats are cause for celebration. Kids barter them like currency, offering up half a cookie or even, in desperate times, their share of Monday's mystery meat in exchange for a glimpse of sweetness or texture. But most of the time, it's just bread and butter. The lunch monitor circles the room, reminding everyone that bread is good for you. Builds strong bodies, she insists, as if strong teeth and iron will are all that stand between you and nutritional collapse. She doesn't mention broken dreams, but you suspect she understands. After all, she's been watching kids tackle this bread for years. She's seen their hopes dashed by dry crumbs and their plans for dessert derailed by a mouth too full of starch to speak. Despite its shortcomings, the bread holds a kind of strange, nostalgic power. Years from now, you'll remember the way it tasted, how it clung to your teeth, how it needed to be gnawed rather than eaten, how the butter melted, or didn't, across its craggy surface. You'll remember the way your friends made jokes, swapped horror stories, and united in shared defiance against one more mouthful of cafeteria-issued disappointment. So you keep chewing, working your way through bite after bite, your jaw aching, your hopes for a soft, fresh roll long since abandoned. The bell rings, and you toss the last crust into the bin with a sigh of relief and a silent prayer for tomorrow's menu. Bread, butter, and broken dreams. It's not what you'd choose, but in the lunchrooms of 1907, it's what you get. And if nothing else, it leaves you with a stronger jaw, a thicker skin, and a lifetime of stories about the bread that simply refused to quit. Every tray comes with a bottle of milk that's either lukewarm or suspiciously room temperature. Pasteurization isn't a guarantee, and refrigeration is more of a suggestion. Drinking it is less about nutrition and more about bravely tempting fate. You pick up the small glass bottle, its surface slick with condensation, except it's not the cold, refreshing kind. It's the "I've been sitting out since 8 a.m. kind. The bottle cap, made of thin cardboard, comes off with a faint squelch, followed by a subtle hiss as if the milk itself is sighing at its own predicament. You peer inside, and what greets you is an off-white liquid that sloshes in slow motion, the color of an existential crisis. There is no "got milk" campaign here. There's just a collective sense of duty. You glance around the cafeteria, watching your fellow students psych themselves up for the first sip. It's a ritual, almost a dare. Someone nearby sniffs their bottle, recoils, and then does that thing every child does, shakes it, hoping somehow the laws of chemistry will right whatever's wrong. The milk, unimpressed, continues to look slightly menacing. In the early 1900s, milk is the hill everyone must climb. If you're lucky, it tastes like nothing. If you're unlucky, it tastes like regret. Or, on rare, particularly cursed days, like sour cheese left out in a thunderstorm. Some kids try to chug it quickly, hoping sheer speed will outrun the flavor. Others take tiny, cautious sips, each one a test of willpower. Then there are the veterans. They simply hold their noses, tip their heads back, and hope for the best. Teachers and lunch monitors circulate with the sort of encouragement usually reserved for Olympic coaches or hostage negotiators. Milk is good for you, they insist, and you know they're right, at least theoretically. Calcium for your bones, vitamins for your growing body. It's science, But the science feels deeply personal when the bottle in your hand smells faintly of barn and ambition. The rules are non-negotiable. You can't leave the table until your bottle is empty. No exceptions, no excuses, not even for the kid who claims to be allergic to weird smells. Some kids get creative, attempting to trade their milk away for an extra biscuit, or pour it into their soup to create a terrifying new hybrid. Others try the classic accidentally on purpose spill. But the lunchroom monitors have seen every trick in the book and are quick to respond with a fresh bottle, always room temperature, always slightly accusatory. There's no escape. Every so often, someone gets a bottle with a prize, a small glob of cream floating at the top, stubbornly refusing to mix in, like a tiny iceberg made of lard. You're told it's healthy. That's the best part. But it slides down your throat with the elegance of a dare gone wrong. On rare occasions, you hear rumors of a bottle with actual chunks. No one knows what to do about this, so you just pretend it never happened, like a milk-based ghost story. The taste is impossible to forget, but the aftertaste is even more determined to linger. It coats your mouth, clings to your tongue, and makes you wonder if you've just consumed dairy, or if this is the first step in an elaborate prank set up by your ancestors. Some kids try to mask the flavor by eating a bite of bread. Others chase it with a mouthful of potatoes. But nothing truly erases the memory. Despite it all, milk is non-negotiable, a daily ritual that unites everyone in the lunchroom. You share a knowing glance with your classmates, a moment of solidarity born of shared suffering. Later, you'll laugh about it, or maybe just shudder quietly in the corner, but for now, you tip back your bottle, close your eyes, and swallow, hoping for the best. And when the bottle is finally empty, you set it down with the triumphant exhaustion of someone who's survived another round. You may never know if it made you healthier, but you're certain it made you braver. That's milk in the early 1900s. Warm, questionable, and absolutely mandatory, a true test of character, one reluctant gulp at a time. Soups are the great equalizer. Every leftover is a candidate for today's stew. Beans, gristle, and vegetables all swimming together in a cloudy broth. Every bite is a new adventure, most of them unrequested. You stare down at your bowl, watching as tiny islands of oil bob across the surface like survivors of a culinary shipwreck. The broth is a mysterious shade of brownish grey, somewhere between nutritious and I don't want to know. Steam rises, curling in the air with the kind of enthusiasm that the lunch staff reserves for Thursdays, when they get to dump absolutely everything from the week into a single pot. This is not just a meal. This is a historic event in the life cycle of leftovers. The first spoonful is always the hardest. You approach with caution, blowing gently on the surface to cool it, and maybe to waft away whatever secrets it's hiding. You scoop up a combination of beans, carrot bits, and something that might once have been celery, or possibly a decorative ribbon. It's impossible to be sure. You chew. The beans are mushy, but still oddly crunchy. The vegetables are limp, but stubborn. And the flavor profile is best described as hot and ambiguous. Sometimes you hit a jackpot. A chunk of meat, if you can call it that, hiding near the bottom. You take a closer look. Is it beef? Chicken? Old ham? The answer is yes, or at least possibly. It might be the very same protein you saw last week in the Mystery Meat Monday special, now reborn after a brief career as sandwich filling. The rules of cafeteria stew are simple. If it fits in the pot, it's soup. Texture is an adventure all on its own. You navigate a landscape of soft, gritty, and oddly chewy. There are potatoes, but they've surrendered completely, melting into the background like culinary ghosts. Occasionally you find a floating pea, bravely holding its shape against all odds. Then there's gristle. Small, rubbery pieces that you chew and chew and chew, eventually swallowing out of determination rather than desire. You silently hope you won't need dental records to identify yourself later. Around you, kids trade theories like amateur detectives. If you find a bay leaf, it's good luck, whispers someone. Don't eat the sausage unless it bounces, warns another. There's always that one kid who claims their mom makes stew better at home, a claim met with eye rolls and the universal agreement that all school stew tastes the same, no matter the cafeteria. The lunch monitor insists that soup is healthy and hearty, which might be true if you define hearty as capable of surviving a nuclear winter. The warmth does count for something on a cold day, seeping into your bones and momentarily convincing you that boiled onion water can, in fact, be comfort food, until you get a mouthful of something stringy and have to reevaluate your life choices. You try dunking your bread in the soup, watching as it soaks up the liquid and dissolves into a lumpy paste. It doesn't improve the texture, but at least it disguises the flavor. For a moment, everyone in the room is quietly chewing. The only sound the clink of spoons against bowls and the occasional suspicious cough. The lunch staff look on, arms folded, satisfied that every child is getting their vitamins, whether they want them or not. When you finally reach the bottom of the bowl, you're left with a layer of sludge that even the bravest dare not disturb. You do your best, scraping around the edges to show you made an effort, and hope the lunch lady isn't watching too closely. You pour the rest into the slop bucket, breathing a sigh of relief that you survived yet another round of ingredient roulette. You leave the lunchroom feeling strangely victorious. You've eaten something hot, something solid, and something completely unidentifiable, all before math class. Maybe that's the real school lesson. No matter what life throws at you, if you can survive stew day, you can survive anything. It's the 1920s and a new lunch hero arrives. Bologna. Sliced paper, thin and sandwiched between bread that's somehow both stale and damp. Add a leaf of wilted lettuce and you've achieved peak lunchtime nostalgia or trauma. The very sound of bologna sandwich carries with it a sort of mythic weight. You watch as the lunch lady, wearing a hairnet and an expression that says she's seen too much, lines up the ingredients. First comes the bread, 2 slices, white and industrial. The kind that's so spongy it springs back if you poke it, yet somehow still manages to be dry around the edges and humid in the center. This is bread designed to last through a nuclear winter and 1,000 lunchbox tosses down the school hallway. Next comes the bologna itself. A pale pink circle, so thin you can practically read your math homework through it. It flops onto the bread with a sound somewhere between a sigh and a thud. No one really knows what's in bologna, and at this point, no one is brave enough to ask. Some say it's made from beef, pork, and a dash of miscellaneous. Others whisper rumors about secret government recipes. The only thing you know for sure is that it tastes like childhood. And somehow, a little bit like rubber. If you're lucky, your sandwich is blessed with a single sad leaf of iceberg lettuce, a green, drooping flag that signals an attempt at nutrition. By the time lunch rolls around, the lettuce has given up. It's wilted, damp, and pressed so flat it could double as tracing paper. Sometimes there's a swipe of mayonnaise, sometimes mustard, but usually the bread and bologna are left to their own devices, held together by sheer willpower and nostalgia. Biting into the sandwich is a full sensory experience. The bread sticks to the roof of your mouth, the bologna slides around evasively, and the lettuce adds a faint crunch that quickly dissolves into watery nothingness. The flavors blend into a unique symphony of almost meat, vague dairy, and yesterday's air. You eat not for pleasure, but because this is what's on the menu. And you're pretty sure the alternative is boiled cabbage. Around you, everyone has a different technique for tackling the bologna beast. Some peel off the bologna and eat it separately, rolling it up like a cigar and taking tiny, careful bites. Others layer on potato chips, if they're lucky enough to have them from home, crunching through the blandness in a desperate bid for flavor. The boldest eaters trade bologna for cookies, apples, or even half a square of fudge, bartering with the seriousness of Wall Street brokers. The social status of the bologna sandwich cannot be underestimated. On one hand, it's the every kid's lunch, democratic and familiar. On the other, it's a symbol of the great cafeteria divide. Those with extra fillings, cheese, tomato, the mythical double bologna, are instantly elevated to playground royalty. If you're stuck with just bread and meat, you do your best to pretend you like it that way. Even so, there's a strange comfort in its predictability. You know what you're getting. No bones, no mystery gravy, nothing to identify or fear. It's a safe bet, if not a thrilling one. Some days, you dream of something more exotic, like peanut butter or leftover roast beef, but most of the time, you're just grateful your lunch isn't actively wiggling. Years later, the bologna sandwich will become a sort of culinary nostalgia, one part hunger, one part history, one part endurance. You'll tell your friends, "We ate bologna every day and we survived," as if that alone was proof of your resilience. Maybe it is. By the end of lunch, your sandwich is gone, your jaw is tired, and you're left with a faint film of mayonnaise on your fingers and a curious longing for flavor. The bell rings, and you head back to class, still chewing the memory. That's the bologna sandwich. Not glamorous, not adventurous, but somehow, in its own bland way, iconic. Welcome to lunch in the 1920s. You survived. Nothing says 1900s school lunch like a cube of jell-o trembling ominously on your tray. It's brightly colored, suspiciously shiny, and sometimes hides unexpected vegetables. Is it dessert? Is it a prank? The debate rages on. You approach your tray with caution, giving the jell-o a wide berth. It wobbles menacingly at the slightest breeze, casting prismatic glimmers across your plate. If there's sunlight in the room, it catches on the sugary surface and refracts onto your neighbor's mashed potatoes like a warning. Red, green, orange, sometimes even blue, as if the kitchen staff is conducting a science experiment and the children are the subjects. You poke it with your fork. The cube jiggles, but does not yield. More elastic than food has any right to be. For a moment, it holds its shape, shivering with the confidence of a food that knows it can't be pinned down. You take a cautious sniff. There's a sweet, artificial fragrance, overlaid with the faintly medicinal smell of a cleaning product. Beneath it, an undertone of carrots? You lean in closer. Yes, there are orange flecks suspended inside. You sigh. It's one of those days. Some days, the jell-o is plain and frankly almost enjoyable. Other days, it's a vessel for the lunch lady's wildest culinary ambitions. Grated carrots, peas, canned fruit, or, on one memorable occasion, shredded cabbage. If you're lucky, you get canned peaches or a maraschino cherry entombed like a treasure. If you're not, you're stuck fishing out something fibrous and green that no child on earth has ever willingly consumed. Around the lunchroom, the jell-o becomes the centerpiece of heated discussion. Is this the dessert? Someone whispers. Or is it the vegetable? The lunch monitor just smiles mysteriously. No one knows. The kitchen staff refuse to clarify. It's as if jell-o exists in its own culinary dimension, simultaneously sweet and savory, treat and punishment, reward and challenge. There are many strategies for eating the jell-o. Some kids go in bravely, forking up a chunk and swallowing it whole, no questions asked. Others pick at it, inspecting every translucent layer for hidden dangers. The boldest eaters make a game of it, trying to identify all the surprises inside before taking a bite. There are those who trade away their jell-o for a second helping of bread. Anything to avoid the mystery. And then there are the true believers. Kids who adore jell-o in all its forms, collecting unwanted cubes from their friends and building a wobbling monument on their tray. Texture is a defining feature. Jell-o doesn't just sit still, it moves, it quivers, it taunts. It slips off forks, bounces off plates, and sometimes escapes entirely, landing on the floor in a gooey, triumphant heap. It is both fun and mildly alarming. A dessert that acts like a living thing. There's always a rumor that if you drop a cube from shoulder height, it'll bounce back up. No one has managed it yet, but every lunch period someone tries. Jell-o also doubles as currency. Want to swap for an extra biscuit? Offer your cube. Need help with math homework? Bribe with a double portion of lime Jell-o, but only if it's fruit-free. The social economy of the cafeteria pivots on who gets the biggest, brightest cube and who can successfully trade away the one with vegetables inside. By the end of lunch, the Jell-o debate is still raging. Was it good? Was it edible? What exactly was that green thing in the middle? No one is ever quite sure. You scrape your tray and watch as the remaining cubes slide into the slop bucket, still shimmering, still unyielding, still, somehow, untouched by time or digestion. Later, as you pack up to leave, the taste of artificial cherry lingers on your tongue, joined by a sneaking suspicion that you may have consumed a full serving of carrots disguised as dessert. You survived Jell-o, the culinary wildcard. Whether you enjoyed it or not is between you, your taste buds, and the mysterious force that governs all 1900s school lunch menus. Legumes are cheap, plentiful, and, according to every school menu, necessary for growing bodies. Baked, boiled, or mashed. Beans are served with the warning that what happens after lunch is your own problem. No matter the day or the decade, school lunch planners have always been on a mission. Stretch the budget, fill up as many little bellies as possible, and do it all with something that could survive both storage and suspicious inspection. Enter beans. They arrive on your tray in every shape and form: navy beans, pinto beans, kidney beans, and sometimes the kind that just say beans with no other identifying features. They glisten in thin tomato sauce, hide out in casseroles, or appear unexpectedly in cold salads, ready to fulfill their destiny. Baked beans are the most popular, served steaming hot, their sticky sweet aroma drifting through the cafeteria like a warning signal. The sauce is somewhere between molasses and tomato, and the beans themselves, while soft, still put up a fight. You try to scoop them, but they slip off your fork like tiny, mischievous marbles. There's a faint, comforting warmth, and you think, hey, maybe this isn't so bad. But one mouthful in, the sugar rush is overwhelmed by an aftertaste of metallic tang, possibly from the giant can they were born in. Some days it's boiled beans, firm, flavorless, and unapologetically plain. The lunch monitor insists they're high in fiber, and after a few hours, your digestive system will confirm this fact in ways you wish it wouldn't. The boiled beans come unadorned, the culinary equivalent of a stern lecture. You add salt, if you can find any, and hope that the bread on your tray can be used as a vehicle for stealthily transporting beans to the slop bucket at the end of lunch. But the true wild card is mashed beans, a greyish, lumpy paste that looks suspiciously like it was last seen patching a crack in the school's foundation. The texture is as much a puzzle as the flavour. Dry and pasty, yet somehow still wet. Every bite sticks to your tongue, your teeth, and the roof of your mouth, refusing to go quietly. The lunchroom is filled with the sound of chewing, and every kid's face carries the same question. Is this what my parents meant by growing strong? Of course, the musical reputation of beans is legendary. No lunch table discussion is complete without at least one kid reciting the ancient rhyme, beans, beans, the musical fruit. The more you eat, the more you know how it goes. There's a certain solidarity in shared embarrassment. You all know the next few hours could be interesting for anyone sitting in a confined classroom. Some blame the beans, others blame the bread, but deep down, You know you're all in this together. Beans aren't just a punchline, they're a test of social etiquette. How do you hide a spoonful of beans under your mashed potatoes without getting caught? How many can you sneak into your napkin before the lunch monitor notices? And, most importantly, how do you keep a straight face when the after effects hit during silent reading time? Despite all the drama, beans are, at least, democratic. They don't care if you're the most popular kid in school or the one sitting quietly at the end of the table. Everybody gets a heap, and everybody has to deal with the consequences. Teachers encourage you to clean your plate, and even the lunch lady offers a look of sympathy as she ladles another scoop onto your tray. When the bell rings and lunch is over, you stand up, feeling both lighter and heavier at the same time. You survived the beans. Maybe even developed a new appreciation for the humble legume and the powerful social bonds forged in their aftermath. You leave the cafeteria with a full belly, a slightly anxious heart, and a story to tell or not tell, depending on how the rest of the afternoon goes. So, here's to beans. Cheap, plentiful, mysterious, and undeniably memorable. Eat at your own risk. Canned meats take over the menu in the Depression era. Spam, potted ham, and deviled meat appear with alarming regularity. You try not to think about the ingredient list, if there even is one. The clatter of metal trays is drowned out by the unique, briny aroma that only canned protein can provide. A scent that manages to be both meaty and a little bit metallic. On special days, the lunchroom reverberates with rumors. Today's the day. Spam again. Some kids cheer, others groan, but all know there's no escaping the great parade of tinned meats. The ritual begins with a practiced flick of the wrist as the lunch lady opens can after can. A mountain of glistening pink slabs rising behind her. Each can produces a perfect gelatinous loaf, shiny as a brand new rain boot. Spam is king, and its court is full of equally mysterious sidekicks. Potted ham with its crumbly texture, deviled meat that arrives as a pale, unspreadable paste, and an occasional visitor, corned beef, that's somehow both dry and oily at the same time. Your serving arrives on your plate with a gentle thud, the slice wobbling gently as it settles beside your beans. You stare at it, contemplating both the future of your lunch and, if you're honest, the future of your digestive system. There's something oddly hypnotic about Spam's perfect rectangular edges and cheerful pink hue. It's meat, but with all the mystery of a government secret. You wonder, was this ever part of an actual animal, or did it just happen in a factory somewhere? The first bite is always a leap of faith. You brace yourself for the salty rush, a tidal wave of flavor that lands somewhere between smoky and I can't believe it's not ham. The texture is unsettlingly springy, yielding beneath your teeth with a firmness that's almost reassuring until you hit a pocket of congealed fat or a suspiciously chewy bit. You chew, you swallow, you wonder if you've just gained the strength of 1,000 factory workers or the sodium content of an entire ocean. Potted ham, by contrast, crumbles under your fork like sawdust masquerading as food. The flavor is bland, but the aftertaste lingers, a ghost of pork that clings to your mouth long after lunch is over. Deviled meat, meanwhile, is the wild card, spiced, tangy, and vaguely aggressive. It spreads across bread with the consistency of toothpaste and the color of regret. It tastes like someone added a pinch of ambition to the can, and then immediately took it away. Canned meats invite endless speculation among your classmates. Some say Spam stands for something posing as meat. Others insist it's a superfood created by scientists to keep people alive during the apocalypse. One kid claims his uncle fought in the war on nothing but Spam and came back stronger than ever, though he hasn't eaten a bite since. Trading canned meat is a delicate art. Some kids actually like Spam, and swap it for desserts or extra potatoes. Others try to hide their slice under their bread, smash it into their mashed potatoes, or slyly feed it to the kid at the next table in exchange for a future favor. There's always someone who dares to eat extra, declaring, "It's actually good," but their enthusiasm is met with suspicion. You try to focus on the positives. Canned meat is shelf-stable, packed with protein, and, according to the lunch lady, full of vitamins. There's a kind of comfort in its predictability. You know exactly what you're going to get, right down to the last wobbly bite. In a world of economic uncertainty, canned meats are reliable, filling, and, mostly, edible. But as the bell rings and you scrape your plate, you can't help but feel a small wave of relief. You survived another serving of Spam, ham, and deviled meat. A rite of passage for every student who's braved the school lunchroom during the canned protein panic. You head back to class a little saltier, a little wiser, and with a newfound respect for the power of a humble can. World wars brought victory salads to cafeterias, a brave attempt to combine cabbage, vinegar, and whatever was still legal to serve. Sometimes even the cafeteria ladies flinch when they scoop it. You sit down at your lunch table, tray in hand, and stare at the strange pile occupying one corner of your plate. It's the color of defeat and the texture of uncertainty, a mountain of pale, shredded cabbage glistening under a thin sheen of watery dressing. Victory salad, they call it, as if naming it after triumph could make it taste any less like a forfeit. There's always a story behind victory salad. It's patriotic, insists the lunch monitor, serving spoon poised like a weapon. We're all making sacrifices for the war effort. And truly, your taste buds are the front line. The core ingredient is cabbage, cheap, plentiful, and so persistent it could survive the apocalypse. It's been chopped, shredded, or in rare cases, massacred into limp strips. But cabbage is only the start. Mixed in, you find slivers of carrot, a few green beans, sometimes so overcooked they dissolve at a glance. And on very lucky days, a chunk of beet or diced apple, presumably to boost morale. The dressing is a potent mix of vinegar and, well, mostly vinegar. Occasionally there's a whisper of sugar or a vague suggestion of oil, but the dominant note is sharp enough to make your eyes water. Victory salad doesn't just wake up your palate, it stages a coup. No two servings are the same. Some days there's more carrot, other days an ominous helping of celery or even canned peas. Whatever was available is not just a phrase, it's the mission statement. Rumor has it some schools added boiled potato for substance or, on especially daring days, tinned fish. No one ever admits to eating the fish. If you spot it, you simply close your eyes, chew, and pray for peace. The real test is the first bite. The cabbage crunches, then immediately goes limp, overwhelmed by the vinegar's acidic embrace. The dressing is both watery and somehow sticky, seeping into every corner of your mouth and clinging to your tongue like a long, damp handshake. The carrots, stripped of sweetness, provide color but little comfort. You glance around and see classmates performing the classic wartime lunch ritual, poking at the salad, trying to separate the edible from the merely symbolic. Victory salad, you learn, is less about taste and more about endurance. It's a lesson in thrift, resilience, and the ability to eat things simply because you must. The teachers encourage you to clean your plate. It's the least we can do for the troops. You nod solemnly, wondering if the real test of courage isn't on the battlefield, but right here in the lunchroom. Some kids try to trade their victory salad for a slice of bread or a bite of Spam. But the barter market is tough. Even the bravest have their limits. The real entrepreneurs mix theirs with mashed potatoes, drowning the tang in starch, or bury it under beans and hope no one notices. The rest try to tough it out, alternating bites with sips of milk or the occasional square of jell-o, anything to cut through the vinegar and cabbage monotony. Despite its dubious charm, there's something oddly unifying about victory salad. Everyone in the cafeteria is in the same boat, chewing on cabbage, pulling faces, and making up wild stories about the ingredients. It's a collective hardship, a shared struggle that forges unlikely alliances and strengthens the bonds of cafeteria camaraderie. And when, at last, you finish your serving, you feel a little like a survivor. Maybe you didn't win the war, but you conquered the salad. The lunch lady offers a rare, understanding smile, as if to say, "You did your part." You scrape the last shreds into the slop bucket, stand tall, and march out of the lunchroom just a bit braver than you were before. Victory, after all, comes in many forms. Sometimes it's just making it to the end of lunch. Dessert is a once-a-week miracle, a square of bread pudding, a dollop of stewed prunes, or a rock-hard oatmeal cookie. Sweetness is fleeting, but the memory of these treats will haunt your dreams. You know dessert day is coming when there's a faint aura of anticipation around the lunch line. Even the teachers seem a bit gentler. The lunch ladies a touch more generous with the ladle. Hushed rumors pass down the hallway. Maybe today will be pudding, or the elusive jelly roll, or, if the stars align, something with actual chocolate. Hope is dangerous, but it's all you've got. The bread pudding arrives first. A pale, squishy block, steaming faintly on the tray. It's technically a dessert, though by every standard you know, it's mostly just yesterday's leftover bread, doused in milk, eggs, and a heavy-handed pinch of cinnamon. There may be a raisin or two for color and the vague illusion of luxury. The pudding sags slightly, as if it too has realized it could have been so much more. You cut in, and the spoon meets a dense, spongy resistance. The first bite is oddly comforting, soft, sweetish, with the aftertaste of nostalgia and just a touch of must. If you're lucky, there's a patch where the sugar didn't dissolve, a little pocket of crunch. If you're not, well, you've had worse. On other days, the treat is a single, glistening scoop of stewed prunes. They sit in a syrupy puddle, looking like something the nurse should hand out with a warning. Prunes, you are told, are good for you. They keep you regular. The lunch monitor chirps, as if that's the highest honor a dessert can aspire to. You try not to think about the implications. The taste is sweet, yes, but heavy, like jam that got lost on the way to becoming a pie. You chew, you swallow, and then you wait, reflecting on the unique power of cafeteria dessert to be both gift and gentle threat. And then there's the oatmeal cookie. It's sturdy, brown, and could probably survive a minor earthquake unscathed. You bite in and realize it's more durable than the soles of your shoes. There's the faint crunch of oat, the rare thrill of a stray raisin, and a sugar flavor that's so subtle you wonder if you imagined it. You gnaw your way through, jaw muscles protesting, and finally, with a little water, you win the battle. It's less of a treat and more of a team-building exercise for your teeth. If you're in a lucky school, there might occasionally be a sliver of gingerbread, a sticky bun, or, once in a blue moon, a square of jell-o topped with a spoonful of canned fruit. These are the unicorns of the dessert world, spoken of in hushed tones and traded for a week's worth of apples. Most of the time, though, dessert is functional, not fantastical. The real magic is in the ritual, the way every kid eyes the dessert table, measuring, scheming, hoping for a second helping if someone accidentally drops theirs on the floor. The social dynamics of dessert are cutthroat. If you don't want your pudding, someone else does. Favors are exchanged, cookies bartered for future lunch swaps, and alliances forged in the fire of a shared craving for sweetness. The bravest might try to sneak an extra portion, only to be caught by the eagle-eyed lunch lady and sentenced to prune duty next week. Still, the risk is worth it. A little sugar goes a long way when your daily menu is dominated by boiled vegetables and unidentifiable meats. As you scrape your tray, the flavor of dessert lingers, sweet, brief, and entirely disproportionate to its size. Maybe it's not much, but in a world of watery stews and mandatory beans, a single cookie can taste like victory. And years from now, you'll remember those cafeteria desserts with a bittersweet fondness, grateful for the small moments of joy, however fleeting, because in the end, dessert isn't just about sugar, it's about hope, survival, and the simple pleasure of something, anything, that wasn't boiled, battered, or hiding a vegetable. If you can call it dessert, you can call it a win. Step inside the cafeteria and you're hit by a miasma of steamy air, sour milk, and wet galoshes. It's a scent scientists have yet to classify, but every 1900s child could recognize instantly. It's not a smell that sneaks up on you. It announces itself with authority the second you cross the threshold. The double doors swing open and you're immediately enveloped in a thick, humid blanket of what exactly? There's the sharp tang of boiled cabbage rising like steam from the depths, mixing with the sweet and sour signature of spilt milk that's been half-heartedly wiped up with a towel that's seen better centuries. Over it all wafts the background note of hundreds of damp boots, abandoned by the radiator and exuding the essence of rainy mornings, muddy fields, and whatever's been stuck to the bottom of shoes since autumn. You'd think you'd get used to it, but you never do. The scent seeps into your hair, your clothes, your very soul. It is both specific and impossible to explain, like trying to describe the color regret. Your friends might joke about it, but when you meet someone in adulthood who grew up in a different decade, you know immediately if they have experienced this particular olfactory trial by fire. There's a hierarchy to the lunchroom odors, a pyramid of potency. At the top is the king, steam, rising from rows of vats behind the serving line. Today it's peas and potatoes, yesterday it was stew. But the steam is always there, filling the air with an invisible dampness that clings to your skin. Just beneath that is the unmistakable bouquet of institutional bread, yeasty and dense, with a faint undertone of cardboard. It's the comfort scent, but one you'd never buy in a candle. And then there's the lunchroom floor itself, a living artifact, forever sticky, despite the best efforts of mop-wielding janitors. You don't have to look, just listen. The shuffling of feet and the squelch of a galoche that's come loose in a puddle of spilled soup. Every so often, someone discovers a sticky spot, so powerful it nearly claims a shoe. The sticky zones are mapped out and avoided like ancient traps. Above it all, mingling but never blending, is the faint aroma of disinfectant. The janitor's eternal war against germs is waged with a bucket of mysterious blue liquid. Its chemical bite is a constant reminder that, somewhere under the mashed potato and spilled milk, there may be danger lurking, but honestly, it's the only thing strong enough to put up a fight against the other smells. Certain days bring their own special notes. Canned fish, Fridays with their haunting whiff of ocean despair, or Victory Salad Day, when the vinegar in the air is so potent it could bring a tear to your eye, or strip the finish off a school desk. The one mercy, when dessert is served. For a brief, blessed moment, the sugar from bread pudding or oatmeal cookies tries to mask the cafeteria's native scents. It fails, but you appreciate the effort. Some kids attempt to cope by holding their breath as they move through the worst of the fog, making a mad dash for the table by the window. Others embrace it as a rite of passage. You swap stories, make up wild theories about the source of the smells, and joke that the lunchroom air could cure any illness by terrifying the germs. By the time you leave, you carry the lunchroom with you. The scent trails you down the hall and lingers on your coat, following you home like an unwanted souvenir. Your parents might wrinkle their noses and ask, "What happened at lunch today?" But you just shrug. There's no point in explaining. It's an experience that defies words. a sensory secret handshake passed from one generation to the next. You survived another day in the cafeteria, bearing the unbearable smell of lunchroom being. It's proof you were there, you endured, and you've earned the right to laugh about it, eventually, after a very long bath. Seating is an Olympic sport. If you're slow, you end up next to the kid who eats with his hands, or the one whose lunch is making suspicious noises. Social survival is just as important as not choking on your stew. It starts the moment the bell rings. There's a split second of polite calm. Then the doors open, and it's every child for themselves. Trays clatter, feet pound the scuffed linoleum, and the fastest kids stake their claim to the prime territory. The center tables, near enough to the window for a chance at daylight, but not so close to the door that you get trampled by late arrivals. The slower, more contemplative souls are left circling like vultures, scanning for any open seat that doesn't come with a side of disaster. There's a logic to the seating arrangement that's never written down but universally understood. The popular kids, armed with the best lunch trades, or, even better, lunch from home, command the coveted center seats. Flanking them are the jokesters, always ready with a pun or a fake sneeze to send peas flying. Then come the practical alliances. Siblings who stick together, shy kids who claim a corner, and that one group who only ever talk about trains. But the most crucial etiquette lesson is never, ever get stuck at the edge. The edge is where chaos reigns. That's where you'll find the ambitious food traders, always eyeing your jell-o or cookie with calculated intent. It's also the natural habitat of the lunchroom legends, the kid who can eat an entire Bologna sandwich in 3 bites, or the one who insists on mashing all their food together and eating it with a spoon, to the horror of everyone nearby. Then there are the hazards. If you're slow, you might end up across from the kid who narrates every bite. Now, I'm dipping my bread in the stew. Soggy. Or worse, beside the one whose tray is so loud, you wonder if their meal is trying to escape. There are seats where a spilled milk incident is always brewing, or where the mysterious lunchroom smell seems to be most concentrated. Etiquette doesn't stop at seating. Once you've claimed your spot, there's a whole new game. Tray management. Keep elbows in, eyes on your own plate, and don't even think about reaching for someone else's dessert unless you want to start a cafeteria Cold War. Napkins are a precious resource, so guard yours carefully and be prepared for the inevitable "hey, you're going to eat that" from 3 directions at once. Conversation is a delicate art. Talk too much, and you risk missing your shot at the best trade. Stay too quiet, and you might become the unwilling recipient of someone's unwanted beans. If your food starts making noises, whether it's the infamous jell-o wobble or the telltale hiss of stewed prunes, pretend you don't notice. Drawing attention can turn your lunch into a sideshow attraction. Lunchroom etiquette also includes the sacred unspoken rule, help a friend in need. If you see a classmate in danger of an edge seat, offer a spot at your table, unless it means you'll have to sit next to the ketchup artist. If someone is about to be ambushed by the world's fastest bean trader, run interference. The alliances you form over cafeteria chaos are the same ones that will get you through group projects and playground politics. And above all, always watch for the lunch monitor. They glide between tables, eyes narrowed, ready to pounce on forbidden trades or unsanctioned dessert swaps. One wrong move and you could find yourself banished to the dreaded quiet table, a fate reserved for those who talk with their mouth full or orchestrate a rogue food fight. When the meal is finally over, there's a sense of accomplishment. You navigated the hazards, kept your dignity, and maybe even scored a bonus cookie. As you dump your tray and file out, you glance back at the battlefield, silently saluting the brave souls still wrestling with etiquette and with each other. In the 1900s lunchroom, it's survival of the quickest, and only the savviest make it out with both their dessert and their reputation intact. Bartering is a vital skill. Trade your apple for a piece of fudge, or smuggle forbidden snacks from home under the teacher's nose. Every lunch is a tiny, desperate market economy. From the moment you claim your spot at the sticky cafeteria table, the gears of commerce begin to turn. Eyes scan the landscape, assessing what everyone has brought to the table, both literally and figuratively. It's not about what you like. It's about what someone else likes, and what they're willing to give up to get it. That wrinkled apple from your lunch pail. It's worthless to you, but a goldmine if the right person at your table has a thing for fruit and a square of bread pudding they can't stomach. There are the seasoned traders, quick and strategic, calling out their offers before the first spoonful of stew has cooled. 2 cookies for your bread, trade you my jell-o for your beans. The cafeteria becomes a stock market floor, complete with murmured deals, dramatic gestures, and the occasional double cross. Sometimes alliances are formed in advance. If I get pudding and you get a cookie, we swap. Sometimes it's a high-stakes gamble. Will today be the day someone finally brings a real chocolate bar from home? The most coveted goods are always dessert, real fruit, and anything homemade. If a kid shows up with a brownie wrapped in wax paper, they hold the power of a Wall Street tycoon. The bidding war begins, escalating until you wonder if someone's about to trade away their entire lunch just for a single bite of fudge. The phrase, "I'll give you my beans for life," is whispered with deadly seriousness. But it's not all above board. There's an underground market too, smuggling. The rules about outside food are strict, and the lunch monitors are always on the lookout for contraband. But kids are resourceful. A cookie tucked into a sleeve, a candy bar hidden in a textbook, or a wedge of cheese artfully camouflaged in a napkin. There's an unspoken respect for a good smuggler. It's a talent honed over years and several near misses. Sometimes, smuggling isn't about breaking rules, it's about survival. Maybe your mum packed you liverwurst again, and there's no way you're eating it. You slide it into your pocket under the table, making a quick swap for something, anything, more edible. On truly desperate days, you slip a sandwich into your desk for later, hoping no one notices and that it doesn't start to smell by math class. Alliances form and break apart as quickly as the food disappears. Today's best friend is tomorrow's business rival. There's a code of honor among traders: no backsies, no bullying, no outright stealing, at least not while the lunch monitor is watching. There's always that one kid who tries to scam you, offering up half-eaten jell-o for your full cookie, or trading raisins one at a time until you realize you've been fleeced. Lunchroom economics isn't just about food. It's a crash course in negotiation, risk assessment, and social intelligence. You learn to spot a bluff, to hold out for a better offer, to know when to cut your losses, and accept that, today, beans are the only currency you've got. The playground may be where you run, but the cafeteria is where you really grow up. Of course, there are risks. Teachers and lunch ladies are always on the prowl, breaking up deals and confiscating forbidden snacks. There's the infamous snack lockdown of 1927, when half the school had to eat plain cabbage after someone was caught smuggling licorice. And if you're caught in the act, you may lose more than your fudge. You might lose your trading privileges for the whole week. But even with the risks, the thrill of the deal is worth it. When you score that perfect swap, when you finally taste real chocolate instead of the chocolate-flavored paste, when your apple leads to a fudge, lead to a biscuit, lead to half a sandwich, you feel like you've conquered the world. In the end, lunchroom economics teaches you something no textbook ever could. Everything has value, but only if you know who wants it. And the best deals are the ones that leave everyone just a little bit happier and a little bit full. Teachers stalk the lunchroom, making sure you finish every bite, even if it's grey and jiggly. If you try to hide your turnips in a napkin, you risk public shaming and maybe an extra helping. The cafeteria isn't just a battlefield for the students. It's an arena for the adults, too. You scan the room and see teachers patrolling the aisles, clipboards in hand, eyes narrowed, ready to pounce at the first sign of an unfinished meal or unauthorized food swap. They have a sixth sense for mischief, a finely tuned radar for uneaten vegetables, and a memory like an elephant. If you left your beans yesterday, you can bet they'll be watching you today. Lunchroom supervision is a kind of theater. Teachers pace up and down the rows of long tables, one hand on their hip, the other wielding the dreaded serving spoon, ready to redistribute any untouched portions. Some hover over your shoulder, peering at your tray, waiting to see if you'll take another bite or attempt a daring escape. Others sit at the front of the room, acting casual, but you know their eyes are everywhere, behind glasses, over the rim of a mug, or just above the newspaper. Their judgments are swift and public. Eat your carrots, Tommy. There are children in France who would be glad for that carrot. You nod solemnly, wondering if the children in France would also like your bread. Teachers have an endless supply of cautionary tales and guilt trips, ready to deploy at a moment's notice. They might even pause the entire lunchroom to make an example of someone holding aloft an uneaten slab of Spam as a warning to all. The message is clear. Food is not to be wasted. Not now, not ever. You quickly learn the tricks for staying under the radar. Spread your peas across your plate so it looks like you've eaten some. Cut your jell-o into tiny cubes to create the illusion of progress. Take tiny, strategic bites of the grey meatloaf, spacing them out just enough to seem respectable. Never, ever try to dump food into your milk bottle. The lunchroom monitors live for moments like that. And the cleanup is legendary. Of course, teachers have their own alliances. The lunch lady and the principal form a kind of lunchroom command structure, passing silent judgments and exchanging meaningful glances. Sometimes they even taste the food themselves, a dangerous move that earns your respect and suspicion in equal measure. If you see a teacher nibbling on victory salad without flinching, you know you're dealing with a pro. But even teachers have weaknesses. Their eyes drift longingly to dessert. And if the staff table gets a special batch of cookies, you can hear the whispers all the way across the lunchroom. Rumor has it that the teachers get the good bread, the real butter, and the thickest slices of ham. Whether true or not, it only adds to the sense that there's a whole other world of lunchroom politics happening just beyond your reach. There are moments of mercy. If you're really struggling, sometimes a kind teacher will slip you an encouraging smile, or let you slide with only half your beans consumed. But these are rare, hard-won victories, and you learn not to push your luck. One false move, and it's back to the front of the line for another helping of creamed spinach. And all the while, you notice that teachers are hungry too. Not just for food, but for order, for discipline, for that one magical lunch period when everyone eats their vegetables and no one tries to stage a bread crust uprising. They scan the tables, ever vigilant, upholding the sacred order of the cafeteria. You make it to the end of lunch and rise to dump your tray, casting one last glance over your shoulder. Did you finish everything? Are you safe from the watchful eye? At least until tomorrow? You exhale, relieved. For now, you have survived both the menu and the monitors. In the lunchroom of the 1900s, the only thing sharper than a teacher's gaze is the wit you need to escape it. Nobody is checking the temperature of the meat, and hand-washing is a strong suggestion at best. If your bread has a spot of green, just scrape it off. The real test is whether you can keep it down. It's 2012, and the phrase food safety means something entirely different. Mainly, can you eat it without making a scene? The cafeteria is a place of culinary adventure, where mystery is served with every spoonful, and the bravest are those who take the first bite. The lunch lady, hairnet slightly askew, surveys the line with a look that says, "Eat at your own risk." There's no health inspector coming to save you. If the stew has cooled to room temperature, you eat faster. If the gravy jiggles, you pretend it's a new invention. You quickly learn to conduct your own safety checks. Is the meat slightly grey and rubbery? That's probably normal. Is the milk bottle sweating? That just means it's fresh. If your mashed potatoes are lumpy, that's character. If they're runny, that's also character. Lunchroom wisdom dictates, if it doesn't smell like last week, it's probably fine. There's a certain thrill in scanning your tray for signs of trouble and making bets with your friends about what's actually in the stew. If someone finds a bone, it's good luck, or at least a topic for conversation. The bread is a particular gamble. A greenish spot means you just eat around it. Some kids get creative, scraping off the offending area with a butter knife and swapping it for the end piece if they're feeling lucky. If a slice is too tough to chew, you dunk it in your soup and hope for the best. Bread day is always interesting. Some slices have a tang that's hard to place, somewhere between fermented and adventurous. Handwashing, meanwhile, is an honor system. There's a tiny sink in the corner, a pink bar of soap that's been whittled down to the size of a postage stamp, and a line that never seems to move. Most kids just run their hands under cold water, shake them dry, and call it good. The truly bold skip the sink altogether, convinced their immune systems are up to the challenge. Teachers waggle their fingers and issue stern reminders, but deep down, everyone knows the odds. The kitchen itself is a realm of organized chaos. Giant pots bubble on ancient stoves, and steam clouds the windows until everything is slick with condensation. The smell is part nostalgia, part warning. If something's burning, the solution is usually to scrape off the top and serve what's left. There's an art to hiding small disasters. A sprinkle of parsley, a dollop of gravy, or a slice of cheese strategically draped over the suspicious patch. Sometimes you bite into something and immediately regret it, a crunch where there should be none, or a flavor that doesn't seem to belong in any known food group. But the rule is simple. Don't make a fuss. Complaining is discouraged. Resilience is celebrated. If you power through your meal with a smile, you're a hero. If you can't, well, there's always next time, and maybe a bottle of milk to wash away the memory. Everyone knows at least one legend, a kid who ate the weirdest thing on the tray and lived to tell the tale. These are the icons, the pioneers of the lunchroom frontier. You trade stories about the time Tommy ate the purple potato salad, or when Maggie survived the infamous green meatball incident. These tales become part of lunchroom folklore, whispered from table to table like cautionary bedtime stories. You leave the cafeteria a little braver, a little more grateful for your immune system, and with a sense of camaraderie you won't find anywhere else. It's not about what you ate, it's about what you survived. Because in 2012, food safety was just a rumor, and your greatest defense was hope, humor, and a strong stomach. Some kids bring lunch from home, stored in metal pails or waxy paper bags. By noon, everything inside is a little soggy, a little mashed, and faintly flavored by the ghosts of last week's onions. It's a familiar morning scene. You watch your mother carefully pack your lunch. A peanut butter sandwich, a bruised apple, and maybe a single homemade cookie, all nestled in a battered tin pail with a lid that's seen more dents than a barn roof. For the lucky few, there's a colorful wax paper bag, the kind that promises freshness and delivers well, something adjacent to it. By the time you open it at noon, Your lunch is a testament to time, gravity, and the laws of unintended flavor combinations. The sandwich is always the first victim. What started as two proud slices of bread is now a compressed, moist rectangle with mysterious damp patches. Sometimes the bread has absorbed so much apple essence it might qualify as fruit salad. If there's jelly, it will have migrated to one corner, pooling there like a culinary landslide. You peel it apart anyway, scraping off the worst of the soggy bits, and tell yourself it's better than what the cafeteria is serving, probably. And yet, there's a certain romance to the home-packed lunch. Each pail carries the scents and stories of its home. Yesterday's stew, a hint of soap, maybe even the perfume your mother wears. The apple is always a little softer than you'd like, sometimes flecked with tiny bruises, but it's yours. Even the cookies, now fused into a single chewy mass, feel special, like edible treasure unearthed at the bottom of your bag. But there's also tragedy lurking at every bite. The sandwich that sticks to the wax paper and refuses to let go, leaving you with half a crust and most of your filling permanently glued to the wrapper. The orange that's been rolling around so long its skin is now indistinguishable from the flavor of your ham sandwich. And worst of all, the rogue onion from last week's lunch, whose memory clings to everything with the persistence of a ghost, haunting even the most determined peanut butter. Socially, lunch from home is a mixed blessing. The pail is a status symbol to some and a source of quiet shame to others, especially if it bears the rusted scars of generations past. Some kids have a knack for trading, offering up their homemade biscuit for a cafeteria cookie or bartering a boiled egg for a square of fudge. Others sit quietly, unwrapping each item with the hope that today, at least, nothing will be green when it shouldn't be. Then there's the climate challenge. Winter means your sandwich is cold and clammy, your apple harder than usual, and the cookie so brittle it shatters on contact. Summer turns everything to mush. Your wax paper wilting in the heat, your pail radiating the faint tang of ancient leftovers. And rain? Forget it. By lunchtime, your whole meal tastes like the inside of a rubber boot. Every so often, disaster strikes. The lid pops off. Your sandwich escapes and becomes a casualty in the bottom of your school bag, only to be discovered weeks later in a state of advanced decomposition. A thermos leaks soup over everything. The paper bag rips, scattering your lunch across the hallway for all to see, turning a regular day into one you'll never live down. And yet, there's a stubborn resilience in every home-packed meal. You scrape off the mush, eat around the weird flavors, and make silent promises that your own children will one day have lunches packed with ice packs and airtight containers. Maybe you finish your lunch, close your pail, and carry a little of its aroma with you for the rest of the day. A reminder of home, survival, and the heroic struggle that is lunch in the early 1900s. Hydration is a risk sport. Water fountains are shared by hundreds, barely cleaned, and function as bacteria distribution centers. Drink at your own peril. You approach the water fountain with the same wariness you might reserve for a wild animal or a very suspicious sandwich. The line is long, the stakes are high, and there's a palpable tension in the air as kids jockey for position. The fountain itself looks sturdy enough, cast iron maybe, with a button that sticks and a spout so dulled by decades of eager mouths that it shines like a relic. Every school has one, and every student knows. This is the final exam for your immune system. Your turn arrives. You lean down and squint at the nozzle. There's always a little crust, a mineral deposit, a smudge. Maybe a fleck of something you hope is just old lime scale. You hesitate, then press the button. Sometimes the water springs up in a majestic arc, clear and strong, inviting you in. More often, it dribbles pathetically, running down the side, forcing you to contort your neck like a giraffe reaching for the world's least appetizing leaf. The water is never quite the temperature you want. It's lukewarm at best, suspiciously warm at worst, and always tinged with a faint metallic flavor. Is that iron, copper, or just the taste of bygone lunches? You don't have time to think about it. You're thirsty, so you go for it. Eyes closed, lips puckered, doing your best not to touch the spout itself. You've heard the horror stories. No one wants to be the kid who leaves the fountain with a mouthful of extra ingredients. The line behind you grows impatient, and you feel the pressure to finish quickly. Someone always dares to drink straight from the spout, their mouth pressed right up to the metal. There are gasps, then a collective shudder as everyone mentally tallies their chances of survival. Sometimes a brave soul tries to wash their hands in the fountain, splashing water everywhere, while the lunch monitor shakes her head in silent despair. In theory, teachers remind everyone to let the water run for a second before taking a sip. In practice, nobody has that kind of time, and the line is too long for niceties. You've mastered the quick gulp, the hands-free hover, and the dramatic exit, wiping your mouth on your sleeve and pretending you don't care about whatever you just ingested. Rumors about the water fountain spread faster than germs themselves. I heard it's hooked up to the pond behind the school. My cousin found a tadpole in his cup. If you drink on Friday, you get a rash by Monday. There's always a legend, always a warning, and yet everyone keeps coming back, because the alternative is the milk bottle. And no one wants to risk that twice in one day. Occasionally the janitor does a cleaning, a mysterious process involving a bucket, a rag, and a bottle of something blue. For about 3 hours, the water tastes faintly of cleaning fluid, which everyone agrees is a slight improvement over the usual flavor profile. Then, it's back to business as usual. Hydration roulette. Round after round. Some kids bring water from home, their canteens and glass bottles a badge of privilege or paranoia, depending on who you ask. The rest of you rely on grit, luck, and a robust microbiome forged in the crucible of school lunches and public drinking fountains. By the end of the year, you've built up more than just memories. You've built immunity, camaraderie, and a deep appreciation for the wonders of modern plumbing. You survived the gauntlet. You are, against all odds, hydrated, and maybe, just maybe, a little bit stronger for it. When the free lunch program rolls out, it's a lifeline for hungry kids. Assuming you can stomach the institutional macaroni and cheese. It's orange, it's sticky, and it's here to stay. You hear whispers about it in the hallway long before you ever see it. The grown-ups call it a public good. The teachers call it a miracle. And the kids call it a gamble. Suddenly, everyone is eligible for a hot lunch, no questions asked. For families scraping by during the lean years, this is nothing short of salvation. A tray, a meal, a small reprieve from the worries at home. At least you know there will be something, anything, on your plate. The macaroni and cheese is the unofficial mascot of the free lunch era. The first time you see it, it's blinding. A vibrant, unnatural shade of orange that glows with radioactive enthusiasm. The noodles themselves are overcooked to the point of surrender. The cheese sauce so thick and glossy it could be used to grout bathroom tiles. You take a cautious bite. It's hot, filling, and, miracle of miracles, doesn't taste like beans, turnips, or mystery stew. It does, however, taste like the same thing you'll be eating every Thursday for the rest of your educational career. Portion sizes are generous, if not always appetizing. Alongside the macaroni, you might find a mound of creamed corn, a scoop of canned fruit cocktail in heavy syrup, and of course a square of institutional cornbread. So dry, it might double as an emergency building material. The plates are all the same dull beige plastic. The milk is reliably lukewarm. And the dessert, if there is one, is a colorless block of gelatin or a lone oatmeal cookie hard enough to chip a tooth. Not everyone is grateful. There's a certain pride that comes with bringing lunch from home, and more than one kid will loudly declare they like cold sandwiches better anyway. But for plenty of others, it's a ticket to something warm, something certain, and sometimes something to look forward to. You see it in the way kids gather at the tables, laughing at the cheese strings and swapping tales about the spiciest meatloaf ever served. The free lunch program comes with its own rituals and politics. The lunch lady knows every kid by name. She hands out extra helpings to those she knows are hungriest, always with a wink and a scoop that's just a little too big to be regulation. Some kids stash an extra roll in their pockets for siblings at home. Others try to trade macaroni for cookies, launching spirited negotiations that would make a diplomat proud. For the staff, the program is a point of pride and exhaustion. The kitchen is a whirlwind, steam, clattering pans, and vats of cheese sauce bubbling like a witch's cauldron. They work with what they've got: government cheese, surplus flour, canned everything. Sometimes a donation from a local farm means fresh apples. And those days are celebrated with a fervor that borders on the religious. Of course, the program isn't perfect. There are days when the main course is casserole surprise, and even the bravest among you consider skipping lunch entirely. There are rumors of powdered eggs, rumors of meatloaf so dense it bends forks, and stories of the day they accidentally served creamed spinach for a week straight. You learn to appreciate the small victories: a second scoop of mac and cheese, a dessert that isn't prune-based, and the blessed day when the milk is actually cold. Over time, the free lunch becomes part of your story. It's the taste of childhood, of struggle, of making do. It's not always pretty, but it's always there, waiting in the lunchroom every day. Years later, you'll remember the orange macaroni, not just for its unique flavor, but for what it meant: a full belly, a bit of comfort, and the quiet promise that tomorrow there will be lunch again. And sometimes that's enough. Rumors of pizza day swirl through the halls. When it finally arrives, it's a cold, spongy triangle with cheese that defies the laws of nature. And yet, it's the best day of your life. From the moment you set foot in the school building, you can sense it in the air: a subtle electric current, a wave of anticipation rolling through the classrooms. The whispers start early. Did you hear? Pizza day is today. The most experienced students know to confirm with the kitchen staff, the real keepers of the calendar, before getting their hopes too high. But once the rumors are officially verified, pizza is on the menu, it becomes the only topic anyone can think about until lunch. By noon, the hallways are buzzing. Teachers try to maintain order, but even they can't hide their excitement. Everyone walks a little faster to the lunchroom, clutching their trays in nervous, hopeful hands. The lunch lady greets you at the counter with a knowing smile, the tray behind her lined with rows of triangular slices, each one a little island of cheesy promise. You grab your slice and immediately note its peculiar qualities. The bread is pale, more cake than crust, springy to the touch and bending under the weight of the toppings. The tomato sauce is painted on with a broad brush, more sweet than savory, and it stops a good half-inch from the edge of the dough. The cheese, if you can call it that, stretches and snaps, a marvel of cafeteria engineering, refusing to melt, brown, or even get properly gooey. The toppings, if any, are little discs of pepperoni that might as well be mythical creatures. Finding even one on your slice is cause for celebration. No one complains. It could be cold, spongy, and vaguely reminiscent of cardboard, but it's pizza, and that alone is enough. You watch as everyone, even the most finicky eaters and seasoned food critics, dig in with gusto. Conversation halts as jaws work overtime, and eyes close in momentary bliss. For a few shining minutes, all is right in the world. Alongside your slice, you might get a scoop of canned corn or a wilted salad, a half-hearted attempt at balance. No one cares. All eyes are on the pizza, and kids trade crusts, toppings, and even entire slices with the zeal of Wall Street traders. There's an unspoken code. If you have two pieces, you must offer to share. If you get an edge slice with less cheese, someone will offer to swap for your triangle of glory. There are no losers on pizza day, only those waiting their turn. For teachers and staff, pizza day is both blessing and chaos. The noise level in the lunchroom triples. Even the lunch monitors seem to smile a little more, handing out extra napkins and letting some rules slide. If you finish early, you might be allowed a second slice, depending on the kitchen's reserves and the politics of the lunch line. Myths circulate about the origins of school pizza, how the recipe was developed, why the cheese behaves that way, whether the dough is made fresh or delivered frozen in mysterious boxes. None of that matters, really. All that matters is that for one day, the lunchroom feels like a party, a celebration, a festival in honor of melted cheese and tangy sauce. You scrape your tray for every last crumb, lick your fingers, and hope the flavor lingers just a little longer. Pizza day is more than just a meal. It's a memory, a break from routine, a reason to wake up with hope on a Thursday morning. In the world of school lunches, miracles do happen. They just come shaped like a triangle and covered in cheese. And as you leave the lunchroom, smiling and satisfied, you know you'll be talking about today for weeks. Because in the end, pizza day isn't just about the food. It's about anticipation, joy, and the simple, unifying magic of knowing that just this once, everyone got something they wanted. Every school has them. A rogue bean, a flying scoop of mashed potatoes. Lunchroom skirmishes erupt over almost nothing, and you quickly learn to keep your head down and your tray up. It starts innocently enough. Maybe someone flicks a pea off their fork just to see how far it'll go. Or perhaps a chunk of grey meatloaf leaps from a tray, propelled by too much enthusiasm and not enough cutlery skill. Whatever the spark, it never takes much. In the lunchroom, boredom and mystery meat are the perfect recipe for chaos. 1 second you're discussing the finer points of bread pudding. The next you're dodging airborne carrots as if you've stumbled into the trenches of culinary warfare. The first rule of food fights: never be the instigator, at least not obviously. The real masterminds are subtle, launching a spoonful of mashed potatoes from the cover of a napkin or lobbing a meatball under the table just out of view. There's a kind of artistry to it, a coordination of distraction and aim that only the bravest or most reckless students attempt. The rest of the room, sensing trouble, immediately goes on high alert, scanning the perimeter for the first sign of trouble. When it begins in earnest, time seems to slow down. The lunchroom transforms into a battleground. Suddenly, biscuits become grenades, beans are ammo, and the ubiquitous jell-o cubes ricochet like rubber bullets. Everyone has their weapon of choice. Some go for range, arming themselves with peas or corn, while others favor the splatter effect of pudding or stew. You grab your tray, duck behind it like a shield, and hope the day's soup isn't particularly aerodynamic. Teachers and lunch monitors spring into action with the desperation of people who know that once the first volley lands, there's no going back. They bellow names, threaten detention, and sometimes, in sheer panic, just wave their arms wildly as mashed potatoes whiz past. Every lunch lady develops a sixth sense for incoming danger, their voices rising in unison. Stop that right now. But their authority, for these few moments, is as flimsy as a paper napkin in a hailstorm. There are always casualties. A well-aimed meatball takes out a kid's carton of milk, splattering the table and eliciting a roar from the crowd. A rogue scoop of beans hits someone square in the back, leaving a mark and a legend that will be retold for years. The bravest, or least lucky, end up with peas in their pockets or a streak of pudding in their hair. The lunchroom floor turns slick, the tables look like abstract art, and you make a silent vow to never sit near the kid with the strongest throwing arm again. But for every moment of chaos, there's a moment of camaraderie. You and your friends hunker down together, forming impromptu alliances, strategizing escape routes, and sharing stories of the great food fight of '28 or the epic bean battle of last spring. It's a rite of passage, a bonding experience, a shared secret you carry out of the lunchroom and onto the playground. Eventually, the chaos subsides. Teachers regain control, the mop brigade sweeps through, and the head custodian shakes his head, muttering about kids these days. You scrape your tray, pat yourself down for stray carrots, and walk away with a new sense of accomplishment. Maybe you didn't start the fight, but you survived it. And when the principal comes around asking for volunteers to stay after and help clean, you perfect your innocent face, quietly proud of your well-honed survival instincts. In the grand tradition of school lunchrooms everywhere, food fights are the moments that make all the grey meatloaf and victory salad worth it. They're the stories you'll tell for decades. The secret badge of courage you wear long after you've forgotten how bad the mashed potatoes tasted. Because sometimes, the best memories are made in the heat of battle, armed with nothing but a fork, a tray, and a perfectly timed scoop of beans. The food pyramid is still decades away. But balanced meals are attempted. A grey meat, a limp vegetable, a starchy side. Vitamins are mostly theoretical. Back in the early 1900s, the word nutrition didn't conjure up visions of kale smoothies or avocado toast. Instead, it meant one thing: calories, preferably as many as you could get for a penny. School lunch planners had one guiding principle: keep the children upright and, ideally, prevent scurvy. Beyond that, everything else was up for negotiation. Every meal begins with a protein, or something pretending to be one. Maybe it's that infamous grey slab of beef, or a single slice of ham, whose main quality is its ability to reflect light. If the main course isn't meaty, it's a dense, bean-based loaf, designed to stick to your ribs and, more often, your fork. There's an ever-present gravy, masquerading as both sauce and a vehicle for rehydrating whatever's lurking beneath it. Then comes the vegetable. The definition of vegetable is broad and forgiving. Today, it's boiled carrots. Tomorrow, it's cabbage that's been cooked until it reaches its final, mushy form. Sometimes a single pea appears, adrift in a sea of mashed potatoes, as if making a break for freedom. Occasionally, a courageous lunch lady tries to sneak in a scoop of victory salad or a mysterious blend of roots that taste like wet garden and unspoken ambition. Starch is the great equalizer, filling in all the gaps, literal and nutritional. Potatoes, bread, noodles, and rice feature heavily. There's always something starchy to soak up the sauce, mask the taste of questionable protein, or simply provide bulk. Bread is a staple, its chewy resilience doing double duty as both food and jaw exercise. Pasta shows up, sometimes as noodles, sometimes as a congealed square that blurs the line between lunch and science experiment. As for vitamins, the philosophy is out of sight, out of mind. The closest you'll get to vitamin C is the apple in your lunch pail, bruised and slightly fermented, or the tiny mound of canned fruit cocktail served in heavy syrup on special days. The color of the food is supposed to be proof enough. Orange carrots mean vitamin A, right? No one is entirely sure, but you eat them anyway, just in case. Calories are king, but variety is the real mystery. Menus are devised more by what's available than what's desirable. Government surplus cheese? You're getting macaroni and cheese until further notice. A shipment of beans? Welcome to Bean Week. If someone donates turnips, you'll meet them in every dish, disguised as root vegetable surprise. There's a sense that as long as something from each of the big three, protein, veg, starch, makes it onto the tray, the job is done. The notion of balanced meals is a source of pride and comedy. Teachers encourage you to take a bite of everything, explaining that balance is important. You do your best, rearranging your food so it looks like you're making progress. You listen as adults talk about growing up strong, while wondering if anyone, anywhere, ever got strong eating boiled cabbage and mashed potatoes with grey gravy. Meanwhile, the kids become amateur nutritionists in their own right. Beans have protein, you declare with authority, parroting something you overheard. Carrots are good for your eyes, someone else claims, even though half the room wears glasses. The real nutritional science, though, is survival. Eating enough to get through math class without falling asleep, sneaking an extra slice of bread, and making sure your dessert isn't just a fruit in disguise. You finish your balanced lunch feeling slightly proud, slightly confused, and more than a little full. You're not sure if you've met your daily requirements for anything other than perseverance. But you survived another round of nutritional roulette. And as you trudge back to class, you remind yourself, one way or another, you're growing, if not in height or strength, then at least in stories about the lunches that shaped a generation. Friday brings the leftovers casserole, a bold, mysterious blend of everything that didn't get eaten. If you can identify 3 ingredients, you win eternal bragging rights. You know it's Friday by the aroma alone, a scent that is neither comforting nor alarming, but certainly complicated. The lunchroom fills with whispers as kids make their way through the line, gazing warily at the steaming trays of casserole sitting in pride of place. The lunch lady offers a reassuring smile, but you notice even she can't quite meet your eye, as she serves your portion with a large, determined scoop. What lands on your plate is a rectangle of food that defies classification. The top is crisped to an optimistic golden brown, dusted with breadcrumbs, or possibly just the remnants of yesterday's crumbled crackers. Below that, the casserole layers reveal themselves in a chaotic mosaic. Hints of macaroni from Tuesday, maybe a bit of green bean from Wednesday, shreds of cheese from somewhere in the dim past. The edges are firmer, but the middle is a molten mystery, each forkful a lucky dip in the lottery of leftovers. You take your first bite with a mixture of dread and curiosity. The texture is layered. A forkful yields both crunch and goo, a medley of flavors that change with every chew. Sometimes you strike gold and find a hidden pocket of cheese or a sliver of meat, a reward for your bravery. Other times, you encounter an ingredient that never quite made it into a regular dish, a rogue olive, a lone cube of Spam, or a slice of carrot, so overcooked it dissolves before you can confirm its identity. There is an art to Friday's casserole, and it is an art of survival. The cafeteria cooks are culinary magicians, skilled in the ancient practice of waste not, want not. Nothing is allowed to go to waste. Monday's ham, Tuesday's beans, Wednesday's macaroni, and Thursday's peas all find their way into the bubbling cauldron. With enough cheese, sauce, and a dash of optimism, almost anything can become casserole. Kids develop coping mechanisms quickly. The bravest treat it like a scavenger hunt, declaring their finds and tallying the most bizarre combinations. I got jell-o and a noodle in the same bite. Some mix everything together, dousing the plate in ketchup or gravy in a valiant attempt to disguise the more alarming flavors. The more cautious kids nibble around the edges, hoping to avoid any particularly alarming textures, while others simply accept defeat, scraping the casserole into a neat pile and focusing all their attention on dessert. Teachers praise the casserole's virtues, extolling its efficiency and nutritional completeness. It's everything you need in one dish, they declare. And they're right, in a sense. If you eat enough surprise casserole, you're guaranteed to have sampled the entire week's worth of food groups. There's even a kind of camaraderie to the experience. Kids swap horror stories and trade tips on what to look out for. There's talk of a potato layer at the bottom that absorbs all the flavors, or a cheese pocket in the middle that makes everything worth it. For all its mystery, surprise casserole has a certain comfort to it. You know exactly what to expect. The unexpected. There are no rules, no recipes, just the certainty that, come Friday, you'll be facing the great unknown with a fork and a little bit of courage. There's something oddly satisfying about joining the generations of students before you who survived the end of the week special. When the bell rings and the trays are scraped, you walk away with a full belly and a lingering curiosity. You didn't just eat lunch. You completed a culinary adventure, worthy of a medal and a story for the ages. You might never know exactly what you just ate, but one thing is certain. You survived Surprise Casserole Day, and you've earned the right to brag about it for years to come. The final bell rings. You've survived another week of culinary chaos. On the way home, you swear to never eat another bean, only to find them waiting for you at dinner. Congratulations, you're a true 1900s lunch survivor. You leave the cafeteria behind, the air still clinging to your clothes. A potent blend of boiled cabbage, sour milk, and a pinch of stale bread for good measure. Your backpack is heavier than it should be, weighed down not by textbooks but by the emotional burden of everything you just endured. Every step away from the school is a victory march, the slap of your boots on the sidewalk like a drum roll for the end of the week. The walk home is where the real reflection happens. You replay the week's greatest hits, the time you identified 3 ingredients in Friday's casserole and achieved cafeteria legend status. The legendary food fight that ended with you ducking a rogue jell-o cube. The day you managed to swap a rock-hard oatmeal cookie for a single perfect slice of Bologna. These are the triumphs you'll recount with pride. Later, of course, once your jaw stops aching from bread day. By now, you're an expert in all things edible, questionable, and outright dangerous. You know the difference between day-old and ancient bread. You've developed a sixth sense for avoiding the table with the most aggressive bean traders. You've learned to recognize the subtle glint in the lunch monitor's eye that means today, yes, you really will have to finish your turnips. Your survival skills are unmatched. You are, in short, a lunchroom veteran. Home is supposed to be a sanctuary, but you quickly realize that your family's menu is not so different from the school's. The same beans, the same boiled potatoes, the same creative attempts at balanced meals, all echo through the kitchen. Maybe the vegetables are a little less limp, maybe the bread has more flavor, but the basic spirit is unchanged. You sigh, resign yourself to another serving of mashed something, and hope dessert is more than a stewed prune. At the dinner table, you tell your parents stories from the week, the great milk spill, the miraculous appearance of pizza day, the teacher who insisted on eating the victory salad with a straight face. They laugh, shake their heads, and share their own tales of ancient cafeteria horrors. You begin to realize that this is a rite of passage, a generational relay, passed down with every shared meal and traded lunchroom secret. By the time you climb into bed, your belly is full, for better or worse, and your mind is already moving on to next week's menu. You drift off, still faintly scented by lunchroom air, dreaming of a world where bread is soft, beans are optional, and jell-o never contains vegetables. You have survived not just another week of school lunches, but the camaraderie, the chaos, and the relentless march of questionable nutrition that defined an era. What you don't know yet is that these stories of victory salad, canned meat panic, food fights, and surprise casserole will stick with you far longer than the taste of boiled turnips ever could. They'll become family legends, shared at holiday dinners, told to wide-eyed kids who can't imagine a world where jell-o was both dessert and punishment. And maybe, just maybe, you'll look back with a strange, reluctant fondness for the madness of it all. Because survival isn't just about what you ate, it's about who you became and how you learned to find joy, humor, and a little dignity in the most unlikely places. That's the true badge of the 1900s lunch survivor. Some days, due to rationing or just plain bad luck, the cafeteria menu declared Meatless Day. The result? A sad heap of creamed corn, a boiled egg with trust issues, or maybe a suspicious mound of nut loaf. The only entree that could make a room full of children silently contemplate vegetarianism decades before it was cool. You poke it with your fork, but it just jiggles ominously back. You realize it's Meatless Day as soon as you get in line. The usual smells of stew, spam, or mystery meat have vanished, replaced by the distinct aroma of boiled vegetables and something starchy simmering with desperation. Teachers claim it's for health or the war effort, but you and your classmates know the truth. The budget ran out, or maybe the delivery didn't come, and now you're left to face a tray of edible penance. The main event is nut loaf. It arrives as a quivering brown block, boasting a consistency somewhere between bread pudding and concrete. You wonder if there's a single actual nut in it, or if nut is just a cruel joke. Maybe it's beans, maybe it's breadcrumbs, maybe it's everything swept off the cafeteria floor yesterday, mixed with eggs and baked until firm enough to withstand a minor earthquake. Either way, it sits heavy on your tray, daring you to try a bite. To the side, creamed corn, glistening yellow in a pool of its own mysterious liquid. It sloshes gently as you carry your tray, oozing slowly toward the nut loaf like it's planning an escape. It tastes faintly sweet, faintly salty, and overwhelmingly like something meant for livestock. Every kid knows to eat it quickly, before it soaks into the bread roll and turns the whole lunch into a single, indistinguishable mass. For protein, there's a boiled egg, allegedly. Sometimes it's hard-boiled to the point of rubber, the yolk chalky and dry, the white holding together with the grim determination of a schoolyard daredevil. You peel it, hoping for no surprises, and sometimes are rewarded with a faint green ring around the yolk, a sign it's been boiled for at least an hour, possibly more. Other days, it's a deviled egg, filled with something resembling mustard and hope, but still not quite satisfying. Veggies round out the lineup, but these are not the vibrant, crunchy vegetables of your dreams. It's usually overcooked spinach, limp as a dish rag, or cabbage boiled until all color, flavor, and self-esteem have departed. A scoop of mashed potato, dry and cold by the time it reaches you, sits in the corner, possibly as a peace offering. There might be some baked beans for a bit of bulk, which, given the main course, feels almost like an act of mercy. Kids develop coping mechanisms fast. Some hide their nut loaf under a napkin, others try to swap their entire tray for someone's apple or a rare dessert. The boldest try to drown everything in gravy or ketchup, hoping to mask the taste, or at least the texture. There are whispered legends of students sneaking in a slice of salami or a leftover drumstick from home, passing it around the table like contraband. Teachers circulate, offering encouragement thinly disguised as orders. Finish your food, it's good for you. But everyone knows Meatless Day is more about endurance than enjoyment. There's a communal groan as each forkful is forced down, punctuated by occasional moments of hope. I think there's a peanut in here. No, wait. That's just a chunk of onion. By the end of lunch, trays are cleared with a sense of relief and a silent prayer that tomorrow brings meat, or at least something recognizable. You survived, and maybe even grew stronger for it. After all, if you can eat nut loaf and live to tell the tale, what else could life possibly throw at you? No matter the season, the school lunch gods decreed there would always be apples. Sometimes they were crisp, sometimes mushy, sometimes so bruised they looked like they'd lost a bar fight. But they were there, rolling around your tray, watching as you tried to trade them for anything with sugar. The apple is a constant, a symbol of health, resilience, and silent judgment. You pick up your apple and weigh it in your palm. It's the only thing on your tray you can always count on. A sturdy sphere of red or green, or some shade in between, that survives the treacherous journey from the orchard to the lunchroom. It might be shiny and perfect, but more often it's dented, dimpled, and slightly sticky from communal handling. If you're lucky, it's crisp enough to give a satisfying crunch. If not, it yields beneath your teeth with the soft resistance of applesauce still wearing its skin. The apple is everywhere, every day, in every lunchbox and on every tray. It's the great equalizer. Rich or poor, brown bagger or hot lunch veteran, you will meet your apple. Teachers extol its virtues with evangelical zeal. Apples keep you healthy. Apples make you smart, as if the secret to a passing grade in arithmetic lies within that pockmarked Granny Smith. You're encouraged to take at least one bite, but you know the real game is to see who can make theirs last until the afternoon. Or better yet, trade it away for something far more exciting. Bartering apples is an art. Some kids are apple loyalists, genuinely delighted by their presence, and willing to swap a whole cookie for a second helping of fruit. Most, however, view the apple as social currency. The opening bid in the day's lunchroom economy. You slide your apple across the table in the hopes of scoring half a peanut butter sandwich or a square of bread pudding, only to find that everyone else is thinking the same thing. By week's end, the apple has changed hands so many times it's practically a communal heirloom, and you suspect it's seen more of the school than you have. But there's danger too. The apple is not always what it seems. Sometimes you bite in, expecting crisp sweetness, only to discover an interior the color and consistency of mashed potatoes. Sometimes it's so tart your face contorts involuntarily, and your friends take it as a challenge. Bet you can't eat the whole thing without making a face. On rare days, you strike gold, a perfect, juicy specimen, and for a brief moment, all is right in the world. The apple is also the great pretender, posing as dessert on meatless days, filling the fruit bowl at home, and showing up in every school-related painting, story, or song. Its silent presence is a constant reminder that, no matter what else appears on your tray, mystery meat, boiled beans, gelatin with vegetables, there will always be an apple. It is the teacher's favorite tool for guilt trips. Some children would be grateful for this apple, the centerpiece of every balanced meal, and, more often than not, the thing you find squished at the bottom of your bag a week later. At the end of lunch, some apples remain uneaten, returned to the kitchen, where they will be diced into fruit salad or passed out as fresh the next day. Others make the journey home, bruised and battered, to become applesauce, pie, or an emergency snack before dinner. You might complain, you might bargain, you might even grumble as you take a reluctant bite. But deep down, you know the apple isn't going anywhere. Years later, you'll remember those school apples with a strange fondness, recalling the crisp, the mushy, the sweet, and the sour. You'll laugh about the trading wars and the times you dared a friend to eat the weirdest-looking one. And maybe, just maybe, you'll find yourself packing an apple in your own lunch one day, passing on the tradition, a symbol of health, resilience, and the timeless power of surviving anything a cafeteria can throw at you. There's a tiny sink in the corner and a single sliver of pink soap that looks like it's seen better centuries. Every poster says, "Wash your hands." But let's be honest, most kids simply ran their fingers under cold water for half a second, if that. Germ theory is still more theory than practice, and the real lesson is learning to live with an immune system forged in the fires of cafeteria neglect. You can spot the sink the moment you walk into the lunchroom, a little porcelain basin, chipped and stained, tucked away beneath a faded sign that cheerfully urges, "Clean hands, healthy bodies." The accompanying soap is a once rectangular relic, now worn down to a translucent nub, tethered to the faucet with a string that's grown more grey than white over the years. If you squint, you can still read the brand, but nobody remembers the last time it was replaced. There's technically a line for hand washing, but most kids consider it optional, like homework over the holidays or eating your greens without complaint. You join the queue out of habit, watching as each classmate half-heartedly dabs their fingers under a lukewarm trickle, barely pausing before dashing off to the tables. The brave, or perhaps just honest, admit to skipping the ritual entirely, brushing invisible crumbs from their palms and declaring, "It's good for the immune system." And who can argue? The 1900s lunchroom is a petri dish of childhood. If you survive here, you can survive anywhere. Soap is rationed like gold. Teachers keep a wary eye on its dwindling mass, reminding everyone to use only a little. Those who do lather up often discover that the soap leaves a residue of mystery film sticking to their skin like a badge of honor or perhaps a warning. Some kids use it as an excuse to linger, chatting as they scrub, while others simply splash water, wipe their hands on their trousers, and call it a day. The real chaos comes during cold and flu season. Posters sprout across the walls. Wash away germs. Cover your cough. While teachers launch into passionate lectures about hygiene and personal responsibility. The sink, however, remains as forlorn as ever, rarely overrun, except when a particularly gruesome stomach bug makes the rounds. Then, for a brief, shining week, everyone scrubs with the zeal of aspiring surgeons, only to abandon the practice as soon as the crisis passes. You learn that the rules of hand washing are flexible at best. The lunch monitor may check your hands on the way in, but a quick rub on your shirt or a sneak past the crowd is usually enough to pass inspection. Some kids treat the act as performance art, soaping up extravagantly for the teacher's benefit, then rinsing just their fingertips, grinning as they dash away. Others trade tips on how to avoid chapped knuckles or, in the case of the very clever, how to swap places in line so you can get to the table faster. Despite the apparent lack of enthusiasm for hygiene, sickness is just another fact of life. You might catch a cold, but you build up a resilience that modern scientists can only dream of. By third grade, you've developed a stomach of iron and a set of antibodies tough enough to fend off anything short of the Black Plague. There's a certain camaraderie in shared germs and a pride in surviving another year without succumbing to the bug. As the lunch bell rings and you file out, you wipe your hands on your coat, content in the knowledge that you're a survivor. The sink stands silent, the soap a little smaller, and you're off to recess, ready to face another day. Maybe you didn't wash your hands as thoroughly as the posters advised, but you're stronger for it, a product of the lunchroom, and a master of the fine art of surviving by sheer, stubborn will. And when, years later, someone asks how you never got sick, you'll just shrug and say, "I went to school in the 1900s. Germ theory may be science now, but back then, immunity was a team sport, and everyone was on the roster." And that's where we'll leave you tonight, at the battered, sticky table of history, picking mashed peas off your sleeve and wondering if anyone, ever, actually finished their portion of victory salad. You've survived another round of the 1900s cafeteria, dodged mysterious meats, lived to tell the tale of the lukewarm milk, and maybe, just maybe, come to appreciate the miracle of the modern packed lunch. As you settle into your bed, soft, quiet, and miraculously free of creamed spinach, take a moment to marvel at the resilience of those kids who came before us. They powered through plates of unseasoned turnip, braved the lunchroom's cloud of steamy smells, and faced down grey stews and jell-o that could have its own Wikipedia entry. It wasn't always pretty, but every scrape, every swap, every brave first bite was a tiny act of hope that tomorrow's lunch might, possibly, be a little less terrifying. So tonight, as you tuck yourself in, maybe whisper a little thank you to those long-ago survivors, to the lunch ladies who dished out suspicious stew with a smile, to the kids who invented the art of trading apples for cookies, and to all the unsung heroes who endured Mystery Meat Mondays with more courage than most people bring to their Monday meetings. Because history isn't just about kings and wars, it's about the stubborn, hilarious, slightly nauseating ways that ordinary people found a way through. If you're lying in a clean bed, in a house where the only thing growing in your kitchen is a basil plant and not a science experiment, that's a victory. If your worst lunch this week was a cold sandwich instead of a spam and aspic casserole, you're already living in the lap of luxury. Sleep well, dream of pizza day, and remember, every generation's horror story is just tomorrow's dinner table joke. You made it. Good night.